Hello everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Creativity 101. I'm Jonathan Laird, giving you an exciting mix of education and entertainment one song at a time. So for this week, we're going to be continuing on with a track that we were working with last week, which is called The Catalyst by a group called The Gallery. And you can check out this song and many others like it on producelikeapro.com. There's a fantastic mix academy there with our good friend Warren Hewart, and you don't want to miss that. You can use each and every one of these mixes in your portfolios if you're trying to build a repertoire or you're trying to educate. So, without further ado, let's get going. We're going to start by giving you a little recap on what this song sounds like. Take a listen. Now those drums are pretty lively. You can tell it's a live performance with a really good live band. And you can feel them really feeding off each other and giving each other energy and good vibes. Not a bad track. But we're going to add a few things here to make this really pop out of the mix and give it some energy. So I'm going to play this again, but then I'm going to activate our plugin chain so you can see where we came from and where we're ultimately going to wind up. Take a listen. Let's listen to the drums just on their own for a little perspective. Now we did some subtle moves to get these things to pop out a little bit more and give them some vibrance. And that's kind of what I'd like to share with you today. So the first plugin we have in our chain is our channel EQ. Here we're taking out anything 20 Hertz and below. There really isn't much of anything of value that happens down there. It's below human hearing, and most of what you get down there is traffic rumble and air conditioning noise. It's not a really great thing. We're also carving out a little bit of stereo space for a low-end instrument like a bass, which tends to live in around the 50 to 80 Hertz range. So we're dialing back minus 1.3 dB. We're taking out 184 at around 2 dB. I think we made that move pretty much because we have some guitars that are occupying that range and we don't want to compete with those. That's where the body of those instruments is coming in. But I really like the pop of the snare at around 16K, so we boosted that a little bit. Here's what it sounds like in bypass. And then active. Very, very subtle, but it's making some enhancements to the overall drums that really will make a collective difference in the mix. Remember, small moves across several steps will add up to big changes. Next, we have the console EQ. And this may seem a little strange because I don't actually have any EQ dialed in on this, but I am pushing the console drive emulation because this has a nice smooth distortion that helps even out the transients. So here it is in bypass and then active. You can really hear the top of that snare just punching out a little bit from the distortion. Very nice character. We're going to add a little bit more with our Phat FX channel. I have a preset that I've made with everything in bypass except for the limiting option and the distortion circuit. And here we're just adding a little bit of tape saturation for another flavor of distortion. So check this out. I hear it's really bringing out the liveliness of the room, which is kind of a cool aesthetic. Very, very nice. Up next in the chain, we're adding Logic's stock compressor. A lot of times when we're mixing audio, we fall prey to the notion that we need to buy just a massive amount of bundles and plugins in order to get a good mix. But this compressor is really fantastic. It's got 7 different models. I'll go over those in another video, but each one of them has a different character that they can lend to the mix. For the longest time, I stayed away from Logic's stock model, which is the Platinum Digital, the one that we have here. But it turns out that this is one of my favorite go-to compressors right now because this sidechain circuit has a myriad of possibilities that you can use at your disposal. You can have it read the RMS, which is the average volume level, or you can have it adjust peaks for things that you kind of want to preserve the transient value of, like, say, an acoustic guitar. This filter comes in handy. Sometimes I'll use some of these modes to de-ess tracks or tame harsh cymbals and do things in a completely frequency-dependent way without affecting the entire track. Sometimes I just want to compress everything but the bass frequencies, and this is a very, very handy circuit for that. But we'll go back to the output. Here we've just dialed in about 5 dB threshold, 2-to-1 ratio, nothing really over the top. We have a medium attack and a medium fast release. We also have dialed back the mix to around 62%, and we have the clip distortion, which is kind of a misnomer to me because it actually is the softest distortion that is in the circuit. You would think it would be the soft one, but it isn't. But because we only have our mix adjusted to 62%, we're going to have some of the natural uncompressed signal come through. And so, in a sense, we're using this sort of as a parallel compression circuit. So here's what that does. Really hears some of the subbiness and the girth of the kick drum, and it's kind of like pow, right in your face, which is kind of what you want for a song like this. Last but not least, we have our old friend, the Multipressor. Again, we've opted to get rid of one of the bands. This is a 4-band circuit, but we have disabled band number 2. We've got a little bit of low end dialed in at everything below 240. We got a little bit of high end for everything above 3.9K, and everything in the middle is kind of getting compressed a little bit. That's where sort of the boxy quality of the drum kit and some of the things that you may not want accentuated start to come through. But by boosting these high-end and low-end frequencies, we're going to get the best of both worlds. We're going to get the body of the snare and the kick, maybe the toms, and we're also going to get the snap of those drum heads and the cymbals. So here's what it sounds like. All right. And once more, for a little perspective, we're going to put it back in the context of the mix. Here's everything in bypass, and then we will activate it all. And there you have it. Thanks very much for watching, everyone. Hope it was helpful for all of you. If it was, I'd love for you to subscribe to this channel or subscribe to my website, www.jonathanlaird.net. Every week, we're updating the page with more mix hacks, tips, and tricks to get your mixes sounding the best they can. No muss, no fuss. Thanks again.